This situation just got crazier as multiple NHL insiders have revealed the truth on one player and his availability in the league, with multiple teams looking for a top six forward. This player would make a huge impact on any of the teams we're going to break down in this video, and this situation continues to get crazier. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We've noticed that about 72% of you who watch these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening around the league, any trade rumors, anything that's happening with any of your favorite teams, from the Ottawa Senators all the way to the Seattle Kraken, go down below, hit that free subscribe button. But KC, let's get right into it. The player we're talking about, of course, is Owen Tippett. There's been so many rumors about this player coming out of Philadelphia, and he's had a hot start. He started the season on fire, and you can see this from Morning Cup Hockey with Frank Saravalli, a couple other hosts as well. Guys talking a possible Owen Tippett trade on the latest show, and Elliot Friedman, who was a guest on the show, thinks that either somebody asked him or Philadelphia was looking at something else, and his name got called upon, basically, like, hey, what's your interest level in moving off of Owen Tippett? So he doesn't necessarily think at this point in time, this is the latest update, that Owen Tippett is actually out there. But I think things are going to get interesting, because Philly looks like they might not be a playoff team again. His no trade clause, which we'll get into his contract in a second too, kicks in this July. If they're going to move him, it's going to be this season. And with so many teams around the league, Casey, looking for a top six forward, I think this just makes sense. And there's other insiders like David Pagnotta saying this actually could be in the works. This could be something that we see this season. What's your take on that before we get into, a one team in particular that I think is looking at him and how he would fit in to another team?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Owen Tippett has had a phenomenal start to this season. I think he's maybe one of the most underrated wingers in the league today. Kind of reminds me of a Mike Hoffman type guy, a guy who was underrated his whole career. You see him with 5 goals through 7 games this season, and what you're getting with Owen Tippett is a shoot first winger who can just blow by defenders and pick the corners with ease. But it's not just his offense that is going to make GMs want to jump at him. It is definitely his defensive side of the game as well. He has a big frame, at 6'1", he uses his body. He's not afraid to get into the physicality side of the game. I think Owen Tippett is a like all around winger. What is more shoot first, he's more offensive than but he can lead defensive at times. And I think this Philadelphia team has a very bright future. And maybe moving out Owen Tippett to bring in a younger guy to get with the Michkovs and the Zegras could be the way to go for the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think they could get a really big return at this point in the season for Owen Tippett.
And so far, this season, him and Zegras have had, synergy. There's been something there. They've been looking good. And like you mentioned, I thought that was a great way to put it, blowing past defenders, that he just has that speed, right? And he's a shoot first winger. He's a goal scorer. I personally watched every single game of Owen Tippett's OHL career when he was with the Mississauga Steelheads. And he is an unbelievable player. And you could tell this guy was going to be an unbelievable pro when he was in junior. And sometimes it doesn't translate. You could already tell that he was going to be a great NHL player. And for his contract at just $6.2 million, with the cap rising and the fact that there's 6 years left on this deal, Casey, this makes sense for most teams in the league. But you're going to have to put a really good package together because, again, he's a great player for the Flyers. At this cap hit, it would make sense to keep him as well. He is a little bit older, like you said, than some of the younger players that they have coming up, but he's a great piece, right? So I don't think you have a problem hanging on to him, but he's a great player and would help a playoff team, I think. And again, so many teams around the league are looking for not just, players in general. Like, there's barely any sellers this year, I've found, especially through the off season, but they're looking for top six help in terms of scoring, and he would add that to any team. And if you're a playoff team, like I just brought up here, he's a physical presence too. You said, 6'1", he plays like he's bigger than that. He doesn't shy away from the rough stuff. He loves to get into that. If the Flyers were in the playoffs, he would be the prototypical Philadelphia Flyer in the playoffs. He can score, he can play that physical style of game. He's responsible defensively. There's so many wingers that are one-dimensional. This player is not that. So I think it just makes sense for a lot of teams. You can see the other night that, his goals for expected this year is real off the charts too. Like, he's pushing play, he's driving play, all of these things. So he would help a lot of teams. And when you look over the course of his, NHL career, he's been pretty good, like half a point a game player, maybe a little bit more than that some seasons. Like, he's been a really good player, and he, hasn't touched 30 goals in the NHL yet, but he's been playing on the Flyers, and the Flyers haven't been good. So imagine what he can do in a top 6 role, on a team that is a contender. So I think that's pretty interesting. But Casey, are there any teams that you think he could land on? Because there's one team in particular that I'm thinking of, and we'll get to it in a second. But I think he can help a lot of teams, and I feel like teams heading into the trade deadline this year, not even that, because of the Olympics, it might be earlier, are going to want to spend and would want a player like this.
Yeah, I know you got a team in mind, so I'm going to throw one out there as well. And I think the Edmonton Oilers. I think the Edmonton Oilers are trying to finally win a Stanley Cup and bring it back to Edmonton and bring it back to Canada. They failed at that the last 2 years, and there's no doubt that they need some more offense in their lineup with their goaltending situation, because they're going to let goals in. They're going to need to score goals as well. And Owen Tippett is going to be the perfect guy to come in and inject some offense into this top 6. I mean, if you have this guy playing with a McDavid or playing with a Draisaitl, his numbers are just going to rise exponentially. And I think this year, even if he stays on the Flyers, he's a 30-goal player this year. I think this is his breakout season, to where he puts the NHL on notice and is kind of like, I'm here, I'm next up, I'm going to be one of the next best wingers in this league. We're seeing it now that he's playing with a great playmaker. So if you put him on a line with an elite playmaker like a McDavid or even a Draisaitl, his numbers are going to rise, and he's only going to help this team get to finally getting to the cusp of winning that Stanley Cup.
Absolutely. He would be a great piece to this team, another goal scoring winger on the team. And if you had him beside McDavid, or even if you shifted the lines around and maybe you had Draisaitl move to second line center again and he was on his wing, like, that would be a really, really interesting dynamic. For that cap hit, though, the cap is rising and they can afford him moving forward, of course. But for that cap hit, I think that maybe if you're the Oilers, you go after a goaltender still. But, still, they do and could use some help, although they've started the season pretty strong. But Tippett, I think I would agree with you. He's well on his way to 30 goals in this league, whether it's on the Flyers or not. He's been unbelievable so far this season. He's playing at like a $16 million pace right now. So, again, that's with everything adjusted. Keep that in mind. And the cap is going up, and he's been unbelievable. Those 5 goals, right? And, he's been great. But the one team that I have in mind, Casey, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they can't necessarily afford him right now, but they need a player in the top 6. It is no surprise. This is a team that needs scoring help right now with the departure of Mitch Marner, at least in the regular season. But in Owen Tippett, you're getting a guy that only makes $6 million, can put up 30 to 35 goals, I think, on this team, playing alongside maybe a guy like, John Tavares, or wherever they want to put him in, maybe on the top line. I would imagine if you're getting him, he's playing on the top line. Nylander would move to the second line because they're, messing with the lines right now. But you could use some of that extra help, and just his style of play and what I've seen, especially out of junior, and he hasn't had the chance to play in the playoffs yet in the NHL. He does bring that style of play that the Leafs need on top of that goal scoring. So I think it just makes sense in my eyes at this point. But this situation continues to get crazier. You have insiders like David Pagnotta saying, this is going to happen. This could happen. They're looking at a trade. His no trade clause is kicking in July. And then you have Elliot Friedman saying he's been mentioned in some trade talks, but I'm not so sure they want to move off of him. But it's going to get very interesting. I think a lot of teams are going to get desperate this season because there's a lot of cup windows that are closing, Casey. It's going to be very, very interesting. But we want to hear what you have to say about Owen Tippett. What team do you think he's going to go to if he gets traded? Or just let us know about the season that he's had so far this year. It's been pretty unbelievable to watch so far. And the Flyers look like they have something going there with Zegras and Tippett. If they are to hang on to Tippett, it should be interesting. But let us know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on in the NHL.